Okay, so I finally went ahead and took the plunge. I didn't ask anybody to marry me, but I did watch a movie about weddings, or rather about a pending wedding. That movie, of course, is Bridesmaids. Now, I've been told for years by friends and different people who have seen the film that I should see it and that I would like it. Now, I've seen a couple Paul Feig films. Some were strong, very strong, and some were okay. Ghostbusters, for instance, was okay. I did like it, I had fun. But Spy, for instance, was great. That was an excellent action comedy. And where does Bridesmaids fall? Having seen the film now, I can say now that I understand the hype. My mom and sister had seen it and thought it was great, told me I should see it. Had a couple good friends, told me I should see it. It's funny, blah, blah. So I saw it. And did I think it was funny? Yes. It was funny. It was very funny. This film is about two best friends, essentially. That's the heart of this story. About two best friends and what happens when one of them is getting married and the other is living a life that is not up to what she would like. In other words, there are comparisons, obviously, that are not spoken to all the way, but some aspects of that are. And that's what happens sometimes with best friends. If you feel like you're stuck in a rut and your best friend is succeeding at everything and getting married and doing all these things, of course, I think there's gonna be some feelings around that, and this film really explores that. Outside of that's the core, but outside of that, you also have this dynamic of these women who Annie, played by Kristen Wiig, who she is getting to know. You have the old best friend is learning about newer friends that she didn't know her best friend had, and learning about a new best friend, essentially, in the character of Helen, played by Rose Byrne, who was amazing. She was so delightfully unlikable as a character, but you understand eventually, as you get through the story, you understand why she's like that, and it may not make you like her anymore, but it at least gives you some context to understand where she's coming from and why she's moving the way she is. Okay, pros about this film. Melissa McCarthy is hands down the funniest character in the movie. I've seen her in a lot of things, so I know what she can do. In fact, I think my favorite film that I've seen with her is probably Spy. That film was immensely funny, and so I'm not surprised now, having seen Bridesmaids, that she she really destroyed. Obviously she's a supporting character, but she destroyed. I'm just laughing thinking about it. She's hilarious. So obviously she's probably the superstar of this film. Kristen Wiig, she carries this movie in a way that is very real. She feels very genuine. I know women like her. I have friends like her, and it's very relatable in that way. And also I can see a bit of myself in Annie, just in terms of obviously I have a lot of friends who are married and have moved on to do different things, and you always feel something. There's some feelings around, like, it may not necessarily be jealousy, but just you're feeling like, something's changing. The dynamic is changing, and that's not fun. So I really connected with that. I've had a lot of friends who've moved on, moved away, and done different things, and and that affects you if you're close to these people. No matter how happy you are for them, I think on some level, the reality of it is, I think it feels more real that you're sad that things are changing, or you're not sure about what the future is going to hold for your dynamic, and will you guys grow apart, and will you stay close, and what changes, will you stop talking, and all these different things can play into that. And I appreciated how a lot of the stuff that Kristen Wiig was playing sometimes was not spoken until everything comes to a head, and then you understand you feel it already as the audience member that it's not going to be a fun situation for her as the maid of honor, planning all these wedding things and doing all these things with the ladies who she doesn't know as well. She's feeling like she's losing her friend. Her best friend is changing. This woman she's known since she was a kid. They've grown up together. And there's a concern, it feels like, that they're growing apart. And Kristen Wiig plays that very, very well. And I really related to that. So I felt that. As funny as the film is, there are also moments of tender moments of between the women, and I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't affected by that emotionally, because I was. And I think that if you're doing your job as a film, you want to hit the different emotional beats that don't feel too jarring tonally. And I think ultimately the film works very well with that. Like, it's obviously it's a comedy, but there are moments in between where, you know, there's some really intimate moments that are really touching, and it works from the overarching. Even within that, there is moments of comedy and levity that breaks the tension or the sort of sadness of what's going on. Maya Rudolph also should get a mention. She's very good. You don't see her a lot. She's in just enough so to remind you, okay, here's the reason all this is happening. This is the best friend who's getting married. She has a really great moment with Kristen Wiig near the climax of the film at the one of the engagement party things, and they have it out in front of everybody, and it's funny. It's a funny scene, but it's also very beautiful. You just everything comes to a head, and the two best friends have to have words, and it's real. It feels very real, and I appreciated that. Cons, I'm not sure. I think probably the biggest con for me is the some of the gross out humor that seemed to take away a little bit from the proceedings. Without the projectile vomiting, for instance, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anyone who has not seen the film. I can't imagine that there are that many people who have not seen the film, but if you haven't seen the film, please forgive me. The projectile vomiting, it's not something I particularly like in films, and never mind. Without that, the extended sequence when they're trying on the dresses is fine and perfectly funny without any of that. I appreciated the intricacies of what goes on if you're a woman, if your friend is getting married. There's a whole world, and it's really interesting to as a man, I don't know anything about that, right? Well, I know through my female friends who've been getting married, I know a little bit about some of that stuff. So I have most of my closest friends are women, so we talk about things like that. But it was really cool to see it play out in a film where you get to, you know, all the expected pieces of stuff. The girls get together and they have lunch together, and they talk about what they want to do for bridal showers and for bachelorette parties and all these different things. And then you're looking at dress tryons, trying on dresses, and the different dresses from these exotic places with, you know, ridiculously hard to pronounce names of designers who design these intricate and artful dresses. You get a sequence about that. Even that in itself, it's a whole other world. And you get to the engagement party and look at all the party favors and how important venue is, like the house that the party was held at, which I found out I think was Wayne Manor on Batman, and I'm not sure if it was Wayne Manor from the Batman show or Wayne Manor from the Batman movie. I don't know, or the Batman show meaning the 1960 TV show. I wonder if it's that same house. But that was kind of cool to me that you have this bridal shower party thing at the location that was formerly the Bat Cave top, Wayne Manor. It's pretty cool to me. Aside from that, though, going back to the world of weddings, if you are in the wedding. That's the other thing. You have homegirl Annie is the maid of honor, so she's got a big role. And you got all the bridesmaids dealing with all them, wrangling stuff, planning all this. It's ridiculous. And this is not, we're not talking about what your hair's supposed to look like, what earrings, accessories you're gonna wear, eyelashes, things, all these different, all of that is just, it's a whole other thing. There actually really could be a separate movie just about that. Obviously, because the movie is about really the dynamics between these women. That's what you have to focus on. But it's just the just knowing that that's there. It's a whole other world that I'm fascinated with, and it really is. It was really cool to see that some of the real life stuff that women go through, and to see it. Obviously, it's exaggerated in this film, but to see it play out. This is, you're essentially seeing from the stage when you find out your friend is engaged through to the wedding time. What happens in between that? That's all the stuff that if you're a man, you don't usually see, really. So it's cool to have some representation of that on screen. I appreciated that. Going back to Melissa McCarthy for a second, I have to note that from the first time you see her, she's already at the top. Like, she's already at a 10 already. 10 meaning like she's perfect 10 as far as her character and delivery and everything else is concerned. And her look was just, she had the best look as far as like, she's one of those quirky characters that you might have in your friend group. But she was earnest and she was real with it. And I loved that. She's really eccentric a little bit, but then you see later, you see her, she has a heart already because she's connecting with Annie on a very heart level when they first meet. And you know how you go to a party somewhere and you're talking to somebody and sometimes they get real raw with you upon the first meeting. Like, you just met the person and they're revealing all these things about themselves and it's like, whoa, that's I didn't expect that. And that's Melissa McCarthy's character. Shifting gears, now we got to talk about Rose Byrne, who is essentially the antagonist of the story. Her character, seemingly very popular, everyone loves her. She's got all the inside scoops on some of the wedding planning stuff that Annie doesn't have, and of course that makes Annie jealous, and that she just like Helen is just annoying. She's annoying, and but Rose Byrne plays her so well. You can see why now. Having seen this film now, I see why she was probably in conversations for Spy, one of the villains in Spy. She was great in that too. I love how Kristen Wiig's character, how Annie reacts to her when they first meet. She turns around and go, "Hey, Helen," and Rose Byrne's character turns around. It's Kristen Wiig. Annie visibly recognizes that, oh, this woman is beautiful. There's some intimidation, I think, for her. She thinks she's intimidated a little bit by this person, and that all that is just compounded when the further you get into the story. She finds out how close Helen has become with her best friend Lily, and how that is the person who's taking her best friend away from her. And he doesn't like that. That's not and who would, frankly, especially when you see how pretentious and like real, very, I don't know. She just feels very, she's a bit of a jerk, a little bit. Helen, Rose Byrne's character, and you don't want to. It's like, oh wow, she's. It's clear that something's lacking in her life as far as her relationships with people. Why is she doing all these things? Why is she throwing all these? She's trying to outshine Annie. When Annie has history with Lily, why would you do that? Or keep shooting everything Annie says down and just doing some like, oh, let's do this, and it's like, it's sabotaging Annie's stuff. Never mind, Annie has her own issues, so she manages to sabotage herself in various ways. That said, Rose Byrne's character is not helping. and I loved how she played that. You had a very proper antagonist, and I appreciated their dynamic. The tennis sequence was the best, because a lot of stuff that's, again, not spoken, but through the actions of you see between the two of them, it's clear that this is going to be a fight. They don't like each other. Some stuff is going to go down. It's going to come to a head. And it's all played very well. And then when you get to understand when Helen reveals things about herself, you feel a little bad for her. You know, I felt a little bit bad for her, but I still didn't like her because she still was doing stuff that was jacked up. Okay, let's talk about the writing now. The writing is ridiculous. The writing is pitch perfect. You can tell. So Kristen Wiig, I understand, co-wrote it with another woman, and it's ripped right from real stuff. You know that they experienced some of this stuff, and again, being so close to several of my female friends, some of these things come up in conversations. Sexual things with male partners, what long-term relationships, the reality of that is, all the stuff with weddings and all that stuff. So it was particularly funny to me to hear to learn about some other things that maybe I didn't know about, really. The other thing we didn't talk about, the elephant in the room, is that this film was written and produced by women, starring all women in the lead roles. Is this a film made for women? I think largely the answer is yeah, but I wouldn't say that's completely true. As a man, I can say that I did actually enjoy the story. I enjoyed this film, and again, partly this is because probably my background with just look at my day job. I work around all women. I'm the only man there. My graduate program, I was the only man in my graduate program. My closest friends are women again, right? So part of that is probably informing I'm sure it is in some way informing my appreciation of this film. So I wouldn't say that the film is only for women, because like I said, I saw some pieces, I recognized things that I felt that Annie felt in this film with her friend getting married. So I think some of those things are universal. There are a lot of things in there that's universal. Sure, there's a lot of stuff that's very specific to women in American society, or well, whatever. Women in society when it comes to what they look like, and weddings, and all the expectations that come with that, and social conditioning, and all that stuff is stuff that myself as a man don't have to deal with directly. So, but I understand that. Those things are part of the conversation. That said, the emotions of the film they're not limited to gender. And I think the best movies do stuff like that, where, yeah, they may be coming from a specific point of view, but they manage to tap into the universality of whatever the feelings are. And based on that, Bridesmaids is definitely a winning film. It wins. Would I say it's as great as everyone else has said it was? I don't know. I don't know if I would put it at the top of like my favorite comedies. I like Spy better than this. I think just partly to I'm a Spy fan, but I just appreciated the dynamics in that film. But I really loved the dynamic with the women in this film too. I really appreciate that. That's one of the things that made the film so great. It has a lot of heart. It's very funny, but it has a lot of heart too, and I loved that about the film. So where does it stand in the rating? I would probably give Bridesmaids a solid 8. I think that's where I would put it. Maybe 8.5. A solid 8. I'm gonna give it an 8. I don't know. We'll leave it at 8 for now, but that's where I am on this film. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that if you haven't seen Bridesmaids, gets you to consider watching it. Again, the movie came out 8 years ago, whatever. I'm just discovering it now, and I thought it was great. It was a great movie, and I definitely watched it a second time, the uncut version, and equally funny. So go ahead and take a look at that when you get a chance. In the meantime, stay tuned for more videos. I'll be back. Until then, I'm out of here.